Happy trails to you until we meet again.
Roy Rogers and Dale Evans had the spirit.
And safe to say, we're all trails lovers.
Yes, we are. And we'll be talking about trails and open space next on Loving the Springs, where we celebrate the best and elevate the rest.
You're listening to Studio 809 Podcasts, the cure for common apathy and indifference. Reported side effects include a sense of being informed and engaged. Ask your doctor if Studio 809 is right for you.
I'm Dave Gardner.
I'm Carrie Simison.
And I'm Al Brody.
We're in the Studio 809 Podcasts community podcast studio at The Next Us, a professional cooperative environment for small businesses in downtown Colorado Springs. The Next Us is a backdrop. As a local entrepreneur, you are the artist.
Today, Al is joining us from Melbourne, Florida. In the studio with us is Glenn Carlson, Executive Director of the Trails and Open Space Coalition. Thanks for joining us, Glenn.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
And I know you've been at the helm for, decades, it seems like. Are you? How long?
I started, officially, it would be January 25.
1 whole year.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Hard to believe.
Yeah, and it went by fast.
Yeah.
Like everything does nowadays as I get older.
It was awesome. When I heard that you were the incoming executive director, it made so much sense. As many years as you spent volunteering your time on the board and just knowing the organization and the trails and the open space and everything here as intimately as you did, I was super excited that you were the next one at the helm.
Yeah, I was too. It kind of caught me out of left field, just to be honest. You know, my wife and I have a business here and we've got employees and managers and, you know, we're kind of just running that. And then Susan had been trying to retire for, you know, probably 2 to 3 years. And I don't think they were able to find somebody up to their snuff to kind of take the role or somebody that they thought was very compelling. And so, yeah, Susan approached me the summer of 2024, actually. We had a conversation about it. And I talked it over with the wife and decided, hold on a minute, you get to work with our park system, check, no brainer. You get to work in the city system on complex issues, check. That scratches, you know, a lot of itches that I have personally. And, you know, being born and raised here, I love Colorado Springs, and I always want to make sure that I leave it better than I found it. And with a great organization like TOSC, I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer.
Okay.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
And that answers our first question, which was why. Actually, that's our second question. Our first question is maybe a little bit more about your long-term history and background.
Yeah, so born and raised here. My grandparents brought us here through the military. Grew up in Widefield. Most of my family still lives down in Widefield. I went to Mesa Ridge High School. And then on the very last day that the application was due, my mom said, you should apply to Colorado College. Because I had already been accepted to go to Minnesota Duluth, believe it or not, to go to med school. And then I said, well, we didn't grow up of too high of means, if you want to put it that way. And my first thought was I could never afford to go to Colorado College. But nonetheless, I applied and ended up getting a full ride scholarship and graduated with an economics major, decided not to go any of the med school route. Fell in love with, you know, kind of the nerdiness of economics and the study of people. And once you combine that with finance and things like that, I just loved it. And I still study it and write about it and read about it today. And then, yeah, after that, I actually, through a friend, got connected in tech somehow with a job in Denver with a company called Aero Electronics, which is actually Colorado's largest company. And so they have global operations, Fortune 100 company. I spent nearly a decade there, you know, getting promotions and having higher responsibility and more experience, you know, kind of every 2 to 3 years, and really enjoyed that position. But the commute to Denver after almost a decade just got brutal. It just got brutal. Towards the end of that, my wife and I had started our massage therapy business as well. And so we have 2 locations and I don't know, probably 40 employees or so, I'd say.
Wow.
Now. So we were running that concurrently. I was trying to get back into town and then took a position here briefly with the tech company, really focused on Department of Defense type work. And it didn't scratch any itches for me. I just didn't enjoy it. It was slower paced. I didn't enjoy the amount of waste, you know, if I'm being candid, and it bothered me. And so yeah, decided to step back, and my wife and I just worked full time in the business, and we also have some real estate here too, and so that kept us plenty busy. And
At some point, you decided to scratch that itch a few years ago and run for council, right?
I did. In fact, I ran a couple times. And that's how I came to TOSC. I believe it was 2015, 14 or 15 actually. I ran for city council, relatively young for someone to run for council. I did very well. If I remember right, there was 13 of us running for 3 seats, and I think I finished 4th or 5th. So I did really well for my expectations. Really enjoyed it too. I learned a lot about our city.
You enjoyed it?
I enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved it. I met so many people. And, like most things in life, when you pop the hood and take a look under the hood, you get to see the plumbing and all this stuff and how complex it is to make things run at scale. And it's absolutely true. As part of that process for running for city council, Trails and Open Space Coalition typically interviews all the candidates. And that's how I met our beloved Susan and TOSC. And shortly after that, obviously I didn't win, and Susan said, hey, I'd love for you to join our board. You kind of seem like a parks person, an outdoors person, community person, and that's how I came to the Trails and Open Space Coalition board, and I did that for 6 years.
Now, do you spend much time on our trails or in our parks?
Oh yeah, tons.
What do you do?
At least 5 days a week. We have 2 Aussies. They have gobs of energy, and so we go to the dog parks. We get on a lot of trails. We're on the northwest side, and so we spend a lot of time at Garden of the Gods Dog Park and Rockledge Ranch and things like that.
I've got a question. Sheridan, Wyoming has this thing about a penny, and the penny represents the tax that they have, which is 1 penny per dollar, versus 1/10 of 1 cent that we have. And every time I pass through there, as I go to Butte, Montana, where my wife is from, I think, wow, the scale of having 10 times that income. What do you think compared to other cities, having the percentage of money that we have that goes to parks? What could we do differently if we had a penny?
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, right? Because we get basically a penny on every $10 spent here locally.
Right.
So I think there's 2 dynamics there. One, we typically do underfund our park system as a community. 2, though, there are other communities that have to spend quite a bit more money to build a park system. Locally, we're blessed with a lot of great open space, a lot of very interesting spaces that a lot of effort has to be put forth to protect and preserve and give us access to do that. And so we don't have to build up something like Garden of the Gods, for example, or Ute Valley Park. It's there. It's beautiful. Use it. But a lot of other places have to build up things like, complete trail systems and park assets. And a lot of places even have to move a lot of dirt just to add some kind of terrain to that outdoor structure. So I think there's 2 dynamics there. 1, we could do better, but 2, we also have to appreciate a lot of the natural beauty that we have, Al.
And fortunately, everything costs more right now. So $10, you spend that in no time. You get 2 pennies, 2 pennies for 1 from the olden days, right?
Yeah, you buy a carton of eggs and it does a lot for the parks. Let's talk a little bit about your top agenda. TOSC, you want to do big picture first?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. Yeah. So, TOSC has, for 40 years, been primarily an advocacy organization, right? So we spend a lot of times behind the scenes working on complex things with long processes and a lot of engagement, before a shovel ever hits the dirt to build a park, right? And so things like funding, things like master planning, things like engaging our stakeholders, which TOSC has a lot of members, and so we're very good at that, and bringing people to the table to make sure their voices are heard. In a lot of cases, that advocacy effort is about accountability too. And so, as my good buddy Alan likes to say, a lot of times we work with a lot of the great people within our park system on a lot of great projects, and some other times we have to poke them with sharp sticks. And it's obviously done professionally, and that's why TOSC's reputation in the community is pretty outstanding.
Well, that's no fun.
Well, yeah, I know.
I'm teasing.
Yeah, it depends on the issue. Some things are very contentious and others are fairly obvious. Let's execute it very well and move on, right? So, yeah, TOSC has primarily done that, but I think we could do more. We do quite a bit of stewardship. We do a lot of cleanups in the city. We engage a lot of people to go help out on the trails and the parks. We don't really brag about that too much. We don't really highlight and socialize that as well as we should. And so I think engaging more of those stewardship opportunities is a direction that I would like TOSC to go. And I would go so far as to say that I do want to be involved in building more trails and doing maintenance on more trails and more park systems and being, kind of, I guess what we call internally, augmenting our park systems efforts. And so that's definitely a direction that I think we should focus. If you look at other park systems in other areas, and I don't want to use the word more mature park systems, but some of the outdoor nonprofit efforts are consolidated. And so you'll have an organization that does a lot of advocacy. They'll do a lot of stewardship. They'll do a lot of fundraising for the system, and that money gets reinvested back into the system, but not from taxpayers, right? It comes from other partners, other nonprofits, for example, that are contributing dramatically to these park systems. And so I would like to see some advancement in that area in our park system as a whole. The third thing I think is really important to me is that TOSC continues to take on big, special, dream big type projects. Ring the Peak was one of those. It's a long one. We've been working on that a long time. We've made some progress on it. Mm-hmm. But we've got some other ambitions too. There's one last connection in the Legacy Loop. It's the southeast portion. We're working with the railroad and the folks in the city to get that gap connected. And then we could finally say we have a completed General Palmer Legacy Loop vision, and then start to build around that and incorporate that a little bit better into our city's trail system. So that's important. We just released a hyperlocal park discovery tool called Marlowe. And so, we get a lot of questions all week, every week from people in the community saying, hey, does this park have an off-leash dog area? Is this park ADA accessible? Does this park have restrooms? How hard is this trail? And the list goes on and on and on. And, you have things like all trails that are fairly social, a little bit rogue at times. There's definitely trails that shouldn't be trails in their system, and people use them, and they kind of tear things up. And then you have something, on the top of that spectrum called Cotrex, which is Colorado's trails software, but it's very engineering. It's not super user-friendly. And so what we wanted to do was create something in the middle of that was very hyperlocal. Allows you to quickly learn about our system and plug in and discover other areas that you may not know about. And one thing I learned about after taking this job is that there are gems all over the place. A lot of people go to the Garden, they go to Ute Valley Park, they go to Cheyenne Mountain State Park, they go to Corral Bluffs maybe, but there are places all over the place that are just incredible. And some are not huge, but it's such an experience.
Is it an app?
It's a web tool right now.
Okay.
It's 3 weeks live.
Ooh.
There's some bugs we're working through right now, but we're populating it with content. So it's going to be all Pikes Peak region type stuff for now, including Fountain and Manitou and all those folks. And then our goal is to hopefully maybe develop it into an app eventually.
So right now we head to the Trails and Open Space website and it's live there?
Yep. So if you go to trailsandopenspaces.org and you click on Get Outdoors on the menu, that will take you to it. And like I said, there's bugs. Don't beat us up too bad right now. We're working through it.
And it's called Marlowe?
It's called Marlowe, which is also our mascot.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That is pretty neat.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to the Legacy Loop because, we're all trails all the time, just about. So we know what you're talking about, but there might be some listeners out there who say, what the hell's the Legacy Loop?
Right. Yeah, great question. So when General Palmer founded the city, he had a vision to put a loop, literally a trail loop, all the way around the city. And at that time, the city was basically a tiny little postage stamp called downtown.
It was basically downtown, right?
It was downtown, right? And so that Legacy Loop is a loop around downtown. And it's, we're happy to say that it's almost connected except for one little gap.
How many miles is that loop?
Ooh, I knew you were going to ask that. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
Alan probably could tell you how many inches it is.
I bet he could.
Yeah, he is the Legacy Loop guy. None of us can take very much credit. Alan has been pushing this for, the better part of a decade, I'd say, to get this thing completed.
Alan Beauchamp.
Yep.
Alan Beauchamp.
Yep. In fact, probably if you really want a tour of the Legacy Loop, you should reach out to Alan, and I bet he rarely says no.
And earn a sticker.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard Alan say no to leading a bike tour of some sort.
Yeah, and we do them often too. So if for the listeners on here, if you guys want to tour the Legacy Loop, we do them often.
Well, and it's great to be able to ride on a bike such a distance without being on a street.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I want to ask a question, particularly in this kind of weather. we're lucky because we have great weather year round. But when we had how many 10 inches of snow last week, and, people still want to be out. We're back up to, nice weather, 40, 50 degrees coming this weekend again. Will you just give us kind of the nuts and bolts of trail etiquette when we have sloppy weather and trail etiquette around posted signs?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, right? Because you always have people that are unaware or just misuse the system, right? When we have these freeze-thaw cycles and we get all this snow, it gets packed down and then it turns to ice and then it eventually melts off. And then people start getting back on the trails, typically they'll get rutted out really bad. And so the tendency is, oh my gosh, I need to get out of these ruts. And we're going to see this coming up in March, April in mud season. That's what we call mud season. So the tendency is, I should swing left and get off the trail and cut the corner, or, maybe I should just avoid that switchback because it looks muddy.
Better they swing left than right, though, isn't it?
It's a good one.
Depends on the trail, I guess. You can go left or right.
So they're not doing the trail or the ecosystem a favor when they do that, right?
Yeah, right now, because it is so cold, I would say it's probably not as harmful as it is in mud season, because then you'll start getting really bad brand new ruts and brand new social trails at a critical time when the vegetation's trying to come back to life, right? And it just gets trampled to death. And so it can get messy pretty quick. We have a really good parks team, and our park rangers are usually out and can identify this stuff real quick, and they try to stay on top of it as best they can.
And then when you actually see a posted sign that says trail closed, a lot of times you look past it and you're like, nothing looks wrong. I should be able to
just go.
Yeah, I should be able to just go. But obviously the posted trail signs, when it says closed, it's closed for a reason, even if just as a viewer, you can't see what's going on. So it is really important to, not be that person that slips behind it. There's so many trails here to use. You turn around and pick another one.
Yeah, and it's interesting because people are generally digital first. And so there's an interesting dynamic here, in my opinion, that, when I go hop on a trail, I'm expecting a nice experience, and then I come across a sign that says it's closed for some reason. But I'm already out there, so it's a real bummer, right? And so with our web tool, Marlowe, we are going to have the ability to display events and alerts. And so if there's a trail closure, you can use our web tool to take a look and do some research ahead of time and see, it's closed for some reason. I should go somewhere else today. And so nipping it in the bud and having that little bit of digital first mentality with the way society is now is pretty important.
So the advice is, if it's melting and muddy, is the best thing to do is go roller skating.
Yeah, roller skates work really well on ice.
No, well, I mean, go roller skating.
in
the rink. Yeah, stay off the trail. Stay off the trail. Yeah. I mean, that's the best thing you can do.
Yeah, or just bring yak tracks or micro spikes and stick them on your shoes and just stay on the trail.
Or, if you're going to be on the trail, walk through the mud.
Or just deal with it.
Go around the mud.
Or just deal. Yeah.
And bikes, same thing, we've got the real muddy season. You get out there on your mountain bike and just, suck it up, get on your road bike for the day and you hit one of the paved trails instead.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I think we've been mostly talking big picture. What about short and midterm? What's on your agenda?
Yeah, so actually one other big big picture dream type thing that I've had is I think our region is long overdue for a botanic garden here.
Oh, yeah.
And so my wife's from Minneapolis, and about, 8-9 months ago, we were leaving the Minneapolis Arboretum. And I said, gosh, I wish we had something like this in our region in the Springs. And she said, well, you're in charge of TOSC now. Can't you kind of dream about it and get that emotion? And I said, well, yeah, why not? Why not us, right? Why not us? And that's kind of been my mentality coming into TOSC right now is why not us? I want us to dream big. So when Denver Botanic Gardens, which is about the York Street location, is about 24 acres, when they opened that in the 50s, Denver and surrounding areas was about 510,000 people. Our region, Springs and surrounding areas is probably approaching 800,000, I'd say at this point, right? And so the first question is, oh gosh, could we sustain a botanic garden? Would it work? And my answer is yes. Yeah, we're well past that point. And what you find is that amenities like that are so accretive to your system. Not only financially, they pump a bunch of money back into the system. Denver Botanic Gardens is a $75 million machine. It's gigantic. It's bigger than our parks budget.
Wow.
I'll bet you there are a lot of deer who would be all for it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's a lot of good food. Yeah. But the programming that you get with something like that, the water conservation and education experiences that you get with something like that, there are, I don't remember a last count, but lots of community gardens around town and lots of plant and gardening aficionados that would love to be involved in something like that. And it's such an attraction.
I like that idea a lot. I've only been up to the Denver Botanical Gardens during the holiday season.
Oh, yeah.
And man, that's an experience.
Oh, with the lights?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
So cool.
Fantastic. Yep.
Oh, my gosh. Count me in to help support.
Yeah, so we're at the early stages trying to vision it out, and we're looking for land, which will be the hardest part of this equation, in my opinion.
Okay, so what do you want to accomplish next week?
Next week? What's going on next week? Yeah, and I would guess the small to medium term type stuff, one of the things that I was very focused on coming into TOSC was just operationally, making sure that our team had the right tools, that TOSC was using the latest technology. AI can be very helpful. As annoying as it is sometimes, it can be very helpful. And so making sure that our finances and our operations and the tools that we were using and our office space and even our web conferencing tools, I mean, very first thing I did first couple months was just strip the entire place down and just say, like, does this work for you? Does this work well for us? Yes, no. Should we discard it, improve it? Next. And so we've done that, and I'm happy to say that we're in a really good place as far as that goes. Getting a hold of our data and understanding our data internally is super critical to me. And how we use that data is even more important. And because we've kind of made some improvements in that area and really understood that and invested in it, TOSC had a record year last year.
Wow.
A record year. And it was very difficult out there in the nonprofit world, but we had a record year and it wasn't even close.
We're talking about a record revenue?
Yep.
No kidding.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's fantastic. It allows us to keep investing in our team, in our tools, in our region. And if we're going to do some of these kind of big projects, adding to the system, we're going to need those resources.
So does this mean you have more members than ever?
Yes.
In the past, the Starlight Spectacular was a big one of the fundraisers. So is it just membership or is something else taking that place?
It is mainly membership. We have more donors and bigger donations this year. And so for the sake of our conversation, members equals donors.
Okay.
We have a lot of business partners as well. And we did very well in the grant space this year, too.
So do you have a full-time development person?
No.
No?
No, that's me and Erica on our team.
No kidding.
Yeah. And so Erica, and the reason Erica is a very good hunter and I'm a very good killer. And so Erica finds the grants and then we collaborate and decide, do we have a project this fits in? Is it mission related? Because applying for a gazillion grants and then trying to run around and fulfill all the needs for those grants is not the right way to do that, right? You want to make sure your work aligns with the money. Do what's valuable and then find the resources to make it happen, not the other way around. I don't go chase money and then try to find work to backfill it.
Well, you sound like you've been working in the nonprofit space for decades.
Well, what's interesting is I have a lot of private sector experience with a Fortune 100 company, and it was extremely valuable. And so I can take some of that knowledge and experience working within a large organization and bring it to a small organization. And so I kind of have in my mind what I call a three-legged stool of big corporate experience, entrepreneurial experience, and now nonprofit experience.
And everything you guys do at TOSC, do you have 4 or 5 staffers?
5.
5 staffers.
Yeah.
It's shocking to me the amount of power you guys pack with a 5-person staff.
Yep.
Are you still over in that beautiful house on the east side of downtown Colorado Springs, the Sustainability Center?
We're in the Sustainability Center. There's 2 buildings. Due to budget cuts, the city is actually offloading those houses. We are going to lose our office space. And at first, it's a little bit of a shock to the system, kind of a bummer, because there are other nonprofits in there that do a lot of good work in town. But I don't dwell too much on challenges like that. For some reason, my brain quickly spins things like that into opportunity. And so it's an opportunity for us to grow as an organization, to find a space that better suits us anyways.
How about right here at the Next Us? We'd love to have you as neighbors.
Perhaps. We're looking.
Okay.
Yeah.
How soon does that all happen?
We haven't been given a definitive timeline, but it sounds like it could be this summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you guys work mostly on site, or are you
Yeah.
pretty hybrid?
No. We work on site. Obviously, if weather or, childcare or whatever comes up, I'm very flexible about work from home if need be, right? We're all adults. But I like being in the office. I like the team to be in the office. I think it promotes better collaboration. And so we're there a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Glenn, the Starlight Spectacular,
Yes, I'm glad you asked that.
growing and sustainable for a while. And then the big thing was the city decided to charge for the police support. And that really was the beginning of the end of the Starlight Spectacular from my perspective. Are the donors sustainable? And what do they want in return?
Donors in general, notwithstanding the conversation around Starlight, donors want to see us to continue our good work. And what I find is that donors want to be asked to help. They want to contribute to your mission. They like what you're doing. And they don't want much in return, other than to kind of see some results over time, obviously, right? I hope that maybe answers the first part of your question.
It does.
Yeah, and so we're fortunate. We have a very good, broad donor base. And due to our efforts around fine-tuning our data and making some investments in other places, we've gotten better at managing and engaging with our donors. The second part of your question, Al, I'm so glad you asked that, because Starlight, coming out of COVID, everything changed like most things did in the world. And so the usage of the streets and having very expensive police presence on those routes was very tough, but also the insurance got to be brutal. And our insurance coverage, our policy providers were saying, I don't really like people on bikes at night. But I don't know. I also don't know the last time I heard an insurance company say they like anything except for you paying your premium. And so I wasn't surprised, but it got to be more expensive. It was pretty time consuming and a little bit of a strain on the team. And candidly, it needed some fresh blood. It needed some new energy. And so the team actually, we have a meeting next week with Christina Haywood at Garden of the Gods Foundation to discuss bringing Starlight back to life.
Well, good.
Yeah. Well, if we do that, we want to see it reimagined and reinvigorated and refreshing. And, what I find is that if you have something interesting, people love it.
Well, it was a great event. So if you
Yeah.
could find, if there's a good ROI,
Yeah.
that you got to have an ROI. It can't be a money loser or a break even.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And Colorado Springs is such a last minute town too that I remember when I was on the board, it would be like a couple weeks before and we're like, all right, are more people going to sign up? Are more people going to sign up? And then it'd be that day or two before and all of a sudden entries
Yeah.
would come flooding in. And, it's as much work to put it on for 100 people as it is
Yep.
for 250 people. So
Yeah.
it makes a lot of difference if people aren't committing.
Right. We typically have our member celebration, and we've done it at the nature centers in the past. This year, we really wanted to reinvigorate that and do something different, and we had what we called Trailibration at the Pioneers Museum this year. And we charged for it, and we had Tyler Leeson, a paleontologist that discovered Corral Bluffs, come speak, and then we gave out some awards to 5 people that work in our park system that most people wouldn't know about.
Some unsung heroes.
Some unsung heroes, exactly.
Yes.
So it was a great event, and the team internally at TOSC, when we first started talking about doing this, we have 200 people to fill this place up. I don't know if we're going to get there. Let's use these tools and these investments we make digitally, and let's see what we can do. Let's just try something new. And we almost sold the thing out in about a week and a half, which
That's
caught
awesome.
all of us by surprise.
Well, and it was right during the holiday season.
Yeah.
I got asked to bartend, which
Yeah.
I love to do for Trails and Open Space, but I was booked at another event. And for you to sell that out during the holiday season when there was as much else going on as there was,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Especially to charge for the first year and change of pace and everything.
Yep.
And it really shows how people feel about the organization and wanting to be involved. And
Yeah.
the reputation of TOSC has not gone unnoticed, obviously.
Right. My favorite part of that night was the unsung heroes part, where we decided, because we reached out to 5 land managers locally and said, we're going to have this event. I want you to dig very deep inside of your organizations and go find me somebody that is dedicated, that works their tail off, and we want to recognize those people. I don't want to give awards to the same old people all the time, right? And we found 5 people. It was fantastic. They got a lot of recognition, and it was just really neat to do that, right? And these are people that have been working in our park system for, in one case, almost 30 years.
My spouse and I were there, and I concur. It was a fantastic.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I can't remember now why I had to miss that. But I was going to say, my salary here at Studio 809 Podcasts is zippity doodah. And so there are all these great nonprofits in town that I really want to support, but I just can't be donating to every one of them. So I donate mic time, but I don't have to stop and think about TOSC. I write the check for TOSC.
They get the mic and the money.
Yeah, mic and the money.
Mike and the money. Nice. Perfect. We appreciate it. It gets put to good use.
Well, it's a great organization.
Yeah, we're
really
very
love you.
efficient, as Carrie mentioned.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Colorado Springs Park System Assessment and Master Plan process?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's if I remember right, it's probably a year and a half long process. And it takes a while to do this assessment work and get a lot of the public feedback. And so, the city has been working with Kimley Horn, which is a great consultant team that they've worked with before, to compile this data and put that into that big report. It's online. You can check it out. It's full of gems. Some surprising, some not surprising. And so, just going through the entire system and doing an assessment of the system as a whole is a huge amount of work. Right. And then out of that, we will work with the team to develop the master plan, which is kind of the guiding document for, 10, 12, 15 years.
Are we at a point right now where we need the public to participate in some way?
Absolutely, yeah. So the best way to do it is get on the coloradosprings.gov website and get yourself to the parks website. And then should be a link to fill out the form. It takes, I think, 5 minutes, if I remember right. The more data, the better. We want it to be statistically significant.
All right. We'll put a link in the show notes, too.
And you can find it on our socials, too. We've been posting it and trying to get people engaged in filling that out as well.
You guys also have a really awesome newsletter. It's one of my favorite newsletters to get. It's full of great information. It's funny and quirky. If you don't subscribe to the TOSC newsletter and you do anything in our parks and open space, you're missing out. So definitely recommend heading over to your website and joining there. It's one of 3 that I open every time it comes through.
That's really Aaron and Erica and Alan. They spend a great deal of time on that, and they beg me to write stuff for it all the time, and I just can't get around to it always. It's repeated, consistent, solid effort, and it's led to those results. It's well subscribed. Our subscriber numbers are gigantic, and the read rate, which is more important to me, is through the roof as well. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's one of the few that I bother to stop and read,
If you've never gone for a bike ride with Alan Boshaw, I highly encourage any listener out there to go check that out. It's a lot of fun to see the city through his eyes.
No doubt.
Yeah. So there's a question we ask all our guests, but I want to switch it up. Let's ask a different one today. What do you hate about Colorado Springs? Just kidding. Al, do you have a question?
I have one, if you want it.
Oh, since I brought it up, okay.
The number of car washes.
It is crazy.
It's wild. It's wild. And most of them are owned by private equity firms, not in the region. And so that money generally leaves the area. And they put them right across the street from other car washes, which simply just put the other one out of business. And so it is wild.
Weird.
Other cities are starting to put moratoriums on the number of car washes that can be built. And I'm a private property rights person, right? I believe in it, but it starts to get a little gray at that point.
People spending $50,000 to $200,000 on a new car want to keep it clean, and they just hit that market right now.
Yeah.
What about those Dutch Brothers coffee kiosks?
Oh,
We don't need any more of those, do we?
I don't know. I haven't been to Dutch Brothers in a while. My taste for the sweet coffee went away about 5 or 6 years ago.
There's always just a line of cars.
Always, yeah.
With the motors running.
Yep.
So now that we've asked you what you hate about the Springs, we really do want to know what a native who is the head of TOSC really loves about Colorado Springs.
We're a very reasonable community, in my opinion. Obviously, there's voices on the left and voices on the right, and there's frustrations all the way around when you don't get your way. But, if you have conversations online, that's a different story. That's the Wild West. But when you have conversations with your neighbors or people in town or even, your server at a restaurant or something like that, there's just a very polite, reasonable, easygoing culture that we have here in town. And I think a lot of that is because of the outdoors, because there's an appreciation for our natural beauty in the region that we live in. And I think that permeates itself through the region.
Yeah, we have that in common, very much in common.
Yeah. And if you've been to New York City, obviously a totally different place, very different speed, very different mentality. And you can feel that in an area without saying a word or doing anything. You can feel that. You can feel that in the pit of your stomach, right? And so obviously being a native here, born and raised, I've seen it grow like crazy. I've seen us do great things, and I've seen us make mistakes too. But generally reason overcomes mistakes in time.
Well, and I think one thing we probably take for granted because it's so easy to do, like when you get wound up, if you go outside and especially jump on a trail or something, it's so easy to decompress out there.
Yes.
And almost no matter where you are in town, out there is so close. I live over in Patty Jewett, and, you know, within 10 minutes walking, I can be out of my house and I can be on a trail, look around, take a deep breath, and I don't feel like I'm in the middle of that chaos anymore.
Absolutely.
If you live here and you have nature deficit syndrome, then you're doing something wrong.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Put your phone down. Get off computer. Turn the TV off and go outside.
Yep.
Is there a specific spot in town that you go to for solitude?
Gosh, it sounds so silly, but going to the dog park at Garden of the Gods Dog Park with my dogs that's our jam. We do it 3 or 4 days a week. I know more dog names there than people names. And just to see our 2 Aussies running around, and, you know, my wife are usually just walking along, and we usually have great conversation, and, you know, there's no views there or anything, right? So just looking up at the garden and then Pikes Peak in the background. I mean, looking at Pikes Peak never gets old, ever.
That's true. Every day, every time you look at it.
Yeah, ever. And so it always brings you back to perspective very quickly. But another place that I just discovered, well, or rediscovered, if you will.
Do tell.
Is Blodgett.
Yes.
Yeah, so, and especially some of the newer system that they're building right now, close to the Pikeview Quarry, like some of the new trails that Timberline Trailcraft is working on right now. What a gem over there. That's going to be such an experience for mountain bikers. And it's open, and so, you know, we take our dogs over there as well, and there's enough sight line and visibility to where, you know, you're not going to get a mountain bike that comes up on you real quick. But it's such a cool canyon over there. I'm excited about it.
I'll have to check that out.
Yep.
Thank you.
So there's some interesting community news that we want to share in this episode of Loving the Springs. And we have a new partnership developing, evolving with the Pikes Peak Bulletin. We love the Pikes Peak Bulletin. And sitting with us in the studio today is Heila Ershadi, who's the managing editor. And what have you got for us that you want to share?
Well, I wanted to talk about a really interesting story that is developing right now. It's on our website, pikespeakbulletin.org right now. And the headline is Downtown Neighborhood Seeks Dialogue with Norwood Development. Many people who are listening may know Norwood is essentially the major developer in Colorado Springs. And this potential dialogue developed out of Norwood Development Group's plans to build a luxury catbird hotel on the northwest corner of Moreno and Cascade Avenues, similar to the original in Denver. And Norwood's website talks about the project, says Sage Hospitality Group and Norwood Development Group have submitted a preliminary proposal to build a new catbird hotel in downtown Colorado Springs. The proposed hotel, an extended stay, full-service property, will feature 180 rooms along with dining and meeting spaces. Well, the residents of the nearby Mill Street neighborhood heard about this project and became concerned essentially about gentrification. I've noticed they don't call it that, but I'm just using that as a shorthand because we all kind of know what that means, right? Development that does beautify a neighborhood, does bring economic development, can have the unintended consequence of raising housing costs and pushing out the people that lived in that neighborhood prior to the development. So the residents of the Mill Street neighborhood have organized under the umbrella of the Mill Street Community Benefits All Coalition, and they've reached out to Norwood to have conversations about how Norwood can achieve its goals, but without bringing any harm to the current residents. The coalition gave a statement that I'd like to read. The Mill Street neighborhood is Colorado Springs' oldest working class neighborhood, originally home to workers at the Broadmoor Hotel, servants to estates in the Old North End, and laborers at the nearby mill, and it continues to house many of the city's essential workers to this day. Mill Street neighbors teach our city's kids, treat our patients, bag our groceries, serve our coffee, and take care of our elders. It's a friendly, diverse, working-class neighborhood, and we like it that way. But today, the Mill Street we know and love is at risk. Historically, an affordable place to live, prices in the neighborhood are rising rapidly as upscale development takes over the south end of downtown. And the group was in talks with Norwood. And then what I heard from some of the organizers was there was a lag in those talks going back in October. They didn't hear from Norwood. They were concerned that the conversation was coming to a premature end. And so they showed up at a Pikes Peak Library District Board meeting. Now, what does a proposed luxury hotel have to do with a library, you may ask?
This is pretty interesting. Yeah.
Right. The answer is tax increment financing. What is that? So because Norwood is doing this development in what is designated as an urban renewal area, meaning that it's an area that is considered to have what you might call blight, and they are proposing to go in and fix that, improve that. They are working with the Colorado Springs Urban Renewal Authority. The hotel would be phase 1, but there is also a proposed phase 2 to the project of attainable housing. And at this time, there's not a ton of details on what that would mean, but attainable housing generally means housing aimed at the middle income that may make too much for affordable housing, but not enough for market rate. Sometimes that's called the missing middle, right? So Norwood's proposing they'll build this luxury hotel, but then after that, there will be another phase of development that will include some housing for that population. Because it's an urban renewal area and a URA project, it can use tax increment financing, which is a kind of complicated, wonky thing. Essentially, it puts some of the projected tax growth towards a project as it's being built. The library also receives tax increment financing, so anytime that another entity is going to do that, they have to work out an agreement with the existing beneficiaries. But they have a lot of leverage because if the Colorado Springs Urban Renewal Authority says this is a project that should get that tax increment financing, that TIF, it's pretty much needs to happen. And there can be some mediation and working out of the terms. But as the library board explained, they try to work something out without having to take it to where there's lawyers involved. So the Mill Street Neighborhood Coalition knew that the library board was going to have a vote on this TIF agreement, and they hadn't heard from Norwood. So they showed up at a library board meeting and said, here's who we are. We're this neighborhood group. We just want to have a dialogue with this developer so that we don't get pushed out of our homes. We want them to talk with us. Please don't vote on this TIF agreement until our concerns have been addressed. And in the next meeting, it did come up on the agenda, and they did have a vote, and it did pass. But the library board passed it with the stipulation that the TIF money only go to the phase 2 of the build, which is the attainable housing build.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and Debbie English, one of the board members who made the motion to approve the TIF agreement, added that she hoped future URA rules would not allow taxpayer dollars to be used for luxury hotels. And if you look at some of the existing thoughts about URAs and how the TIF money is used, you'll hear two perspectives. One is a lot of city leaders who say this is a great tool to invest in parts of our community that really need that investment. Critics say if you don't do it correctly, you can just wind up funneling public money into private pockets. But best case scenario, you wind up with economic development and, potentially some housing. And what's really interesting about this story is Norwood is such a major developer that this could really, if they do enter in a dialogue or whatever dialogue comes about with this neighborhood coalition, that could really set the tone for a lot of redevelopment that happens in the area and potentially change the way that development plays out over time.
Yeah, that could be pretty neat. And, that story mentions so many good resources. Anybody who's really interested in the whole urban renewal technique and how it's being used in Colorado Springs and the future of it, ought to read that story because it'll help you to start to really inform yourself about what that's really all about and how it's being used in other communities and what the critics are saying. It's very fascinating.
It is. And, development is going to happen. And it's always a question of, can that development be a benefit to the existing residents? And I'm so curious to watch the story and see if this group of neighborhood residents and this major developer in Colorado Springs can work that out.
Yeah, it'd be pretty neat.
I always have an odd perspective. So I have heard that gentrification is genocide of a neighborhood, which, if you think about it, it really is, no matter where it happens, not just the Mill Street neighborhood. Once the power plant was shut down, the writing was on the wall that the areas around the power plant stood a high probability of being gentrified. I worked on some of the Habitat for Humanity houses in the Mill Street neighborhood. And even when I was doing that, which was quite a while ago, it felt like it was just a placeholder. It was, let's do something because it's a cheap place to build, because the power plant was still going and nobody wanted to live there or build there. So it was a good place to put low-income people. But now that that's changed, and I honestly believe that the purpose of a city is to reduce the distance between interchanges, that more dense housing is called for. You can slow down this process, or you can come up with a plan to change things in a better way. I hope that through this process, those houses that are what makes Mill Street, they're going to go. And people are just going to have to accept that that's not going to work in a gentrifying and developing urban area, which that area is.
Well, if they have to go, where are they going to go?
That's always the question.
Yeah, we're not erasing those human beings, so why can't that be a perfectly good neighborhood for them to exist in? That's what you want to know.
Because it's too close. That's why. And I've seen it. I grew up in the Bronx when part of the Bronx was burning and New Jersey across the river was developing. And if you look at it now, it's changing over time. But low-income people are always going to get pushed out.
Yeah.
It's just what happens.
I mean, I think this neighborhood coalition has formed because this story has played out so many times that there's no mystery about what happens next for them.
Yeah.
The question they're trying to answer is, can we work together to change that narrative? And we'll see, right? We'll keep an eye on that story.
Yeah, it would be so cool if there was a way. It's tempting to just think that the long-term plan there is for all of that to get raised in order for Norwood development to make millions and millions of dollars, replacing it with more expensive infrastructure.
But always using the same logic, which is it's economic development. It will help everybody.
Well,
They'll be able to afford to live someplace.
well, economic development, just because dollars are changing hands, that doesn't translate into lives being better. So I would love to see if together those two groups might have a wild imagination and surprise us with something better, newer, different.
I hope so, but I'm not optimistic.
Well, whatever happens, the Pikes Peak Bulletin's going to be covering it.
Good.
That's great. Heila, thanks a lot for joining us. We'll look forward to having you at the table from time to time.
Yes, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I think that's a wrap.
Thanks for listening to Loving the Springs.
Please follow the podcast and tell your friends about us.
Until next time, happy trails.
In the Pikes Peak region, there's no shortage of activities. Whether you're experiencing breathtaking parks or magnificent works of art, if you're getting fashionable at a film festival or fresh at a farmer's market, if you want to hear the sweet sounds of a symphony or the smooth shred of a Stratocaster, look no further than Peak Radar, your one-stop shop for all events in the Pikes Peak region, your free source for viewing and posting events. So no matter how you engage with our beautiful region, visit peakradar.com and get plugged into the peak.